On November 19th, we left from Fort Myers and drove about 12 hours to Demopolis, Alabama. First half of the trip, the weather was pretty nice. On the second half, it alternated between rain and heavy rain. We found ourselves on some very dark and wet roads after sunset. We arrived to a muddy parking lot at the Kingfisher Marina in Demopolis, Alabama. Well, this is day one, the trip. This is Demopolis, or the Kingfisher Marina in Demopolis, Alabama. Here's a picture of Formula. We're just kind of getting ready. We're waiting to, there's a big catamaran in front of us that had to be moved so we could get out of our slip. So we're trying to make the 815 lock. Here's a picture of the big catamaran in front of us. It had to be scooted up a number of feet so we could clear. Here's us leaving the Kingfisher Marina, just kind of looking around, checking out all the nice boats. Same thing, we're heading out to the Tombigbee River. This is us entering the Tombigbee River, and we're about to head down river to the Demopolis lock. All right, day one. This is the Demopolis lock we're going into. After entering the lock, we tied up to a Nordic 32 named Stuga, owned by John and Deanna. Turned out to be very nice people. This is my first big lock, and we ended up dropping 37 feet. We're on our way to Bobby's Fish Camp. Here's a few clips of Bobby's Fish Camp. I had heard a few stories about how loopers used to really like the place before the new owner took over. It didn't take long to figure out why that changed after speaking to the new owner. So on day one, we actually traveled about 94 statute miles. Morning two of the trip to Fort Myers. This is Ted, the owner of the boat. It's 5:10 in the morning. We're getting ready to depart as soon as it gets light out. So we're still at Bobby's Fish Camp. Pretty quiet out here. After exiting the Coffeyville lock, we got into some fog that lasted probably about an hour. It was very difficult to see at times. There was a Ranger tug that you could see in that short little clip before that we had to keep track of him on radar. It was so thick at times. Anyway, it eventually opened up and it got really pretty going down the river. This is us on the Mobile River as we're coming up on the Highway 90 bridge, and you can see Mobile off to the distance. Here we're entering Mobile Bay. We don't know it yet, but it's about to get choppy. Here's a quick shot of the I-10 bridge over Mobile Bay. After exiting Mobile Bay, we ended up at the Wharf Marina in Orange Beach, Alabama. After getting the boat cleaned up for the evening, I had a chance to take a few shots of the marina. We had traveled 179 miles on day 2, and we were looking forward to getting something to eat in the evening. We walked next door to the mile marker 158 restaurant, and the Black and Grouper was pretty good. On day 3, we started out by walking the docks and looking at the big, beautiful boats. Man, what a sight. We departed a little after 9 a.m. and made our way to the Point South Marina Bay Point in Panama City Beach. The views along the intercoastal waterway were amazing. We arrived at the marina having traveled 136 miles. That night we ate at that Cajun place. The grilled oysters were spot on, and I'd go back for more. Here's a couple little clips and a short video of that Cajun place where we ate in Panama City. I can't remember our server's name that night, but she was amazing. Getting ready to leave. Another chilly morning. Heading to Apalachicola today. On day 4, we departed around 9 a.m. and made our way down the intercoastal waterway to the Scipio Creek Marina in Apalachicola, Florida. More beautiful views and boats along the way. Here's a nice Katie Krogan that we passed on day 4. Here we are getting ready to pass a Grand Banks 60. We talked with the owner for a while over the radio and then eventually got back on our way to Apalachicola. We eventually made our way and tied up in front of the Half Shell Dockside Restaurant in Apalachicola. We had a nice leisurely 67-mile trip from Panama City that day. After getting the boat squared away for the day, we walked around town for a bit, admiring the buildings and checking out the restaurants. We ended up eating at the Half Shell where the boat was tied up. The fish, oysters, and desserts were yum. Our waitress, who turned out to be the manager of the restaurant, was wonderful. Thank you, Stacy. We were early to bed that night as we had a long day crossing the Gulf the next day. Good morning, it's day 5. We're in Apalachicola and we're heading to Anna Maria Island today. On day 5, we departed about 20 minutes before sunrise. Another beautiful morning. We made our way across Apalachicola Bay through Government Cut, and we were on our way across the Gulf. For the first few hours, the ride was so smooth and relaxing it made me very sleepy. That changed. For about 50 miles, the waves picked up to 2s and 3s with short intervals. Bumpy, but the boat took it in stride. After 50 miles, the winds and waves started to diminish and the ride got a lot better. We hit our nav point and made it into the Galati Yacht Basin in Anna Maria Island, low on fuel. Upon arrival, we looked around and decided we could do better for the night. We put our spare fuel in the tank, fired up, and moved about 3 miles to the Safe Harbor Pier 77 Marina. Good choice. Nice accommodations and an on-site tiki restaurant about a 100-yard walk from the boat. On day 5, we had traveled a total of 220 miles. Good morning. It's day 6 on our trip to Fort Myers. On day 6, we left about 10 minutes before sunrise. We made our way south down the intercoastal, exiting at Longboat Pass. We headed a few miles off the coast before we started south on our way to Fort Myers. It would be an understatement if I said we ran into some crab pots. I think we found them all. As we traveled along the shore, we were able to see the destruction that Milton had brought. It's one thing to see it on the news and another to see the mass scale destruction in person. We made our way through the Gulf, or out of the Gulf, through Boca Graham Pass and headed south for Fort Myers. Traffic was heavy through the miserable mile, and the Caloosahatchee River was rough from wind and boats. We arrived at the Sweetwater Hinckley Marina to a warm welcome from our wives. We had traveled roughly 750 miles in 6 days, and it was nice to be done. It was an amazing trip, and I'm grateful that I was asked to take part in it.